Toronto, you may be wanting to move to Oakville or somewhere in Halton, really, because there's not a lot of traffic there. So
Hey, with the new work from home, a lot of the folks over at Google have actually moved to Oakville. There's like
have
a
they?
mass exodus.
It's funny. I actually never told you, Kelm, but your coworker bought a house on my street, and I'll tell you about who that is, and she knows you. So
It's a small office. We all know each other.
I know.
There's only a
Yeah.
couple hundred of us in that Toronto office.
Yeah, yeah. So she was mentioning you guys kind of all know each other a little bit here or there. Yeah. So her and her husband is a firefighter. They, our daughters actually play together constantly. So they're same age.
Very nice.
Yeah. All right. It is 1 o'clock, and in appreciation to everybody that showed up on time, I think we can probably start. This is being recorded. Let me just double check to make sure the recording has started. Is Crystal on with us? I believe. Crystal, are you on with us right now, or hear us? Let me message her just to make sure she started recording. I believe, yeah, the recording started already, so that's perfect. And are we streaming? All right, so as everybody pops in here, welcome. If you want to message us just from on the chat here, we are streaming live on Facebook as well. That's awesome. We have the pleasure of having two gentlemen on with us today, Kelm and Sebastian. Kelm and Sebastian are with Google, and they're going to give us a little bit of an update to help us understand what's really happening in the world of Google, and they're going to give us some data that we probably haven't seen before, and kind of an understanding what's happened in 2020 and then what's also happening in 2021 as the market kind of changes and shifts. So without ado, everybody, I'd love to introduce Kelm. Who's going to start first, you or Sebastian?
Yeah, I'm gonna start.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. So Kelm, maybe just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, just maybe jump to the next slide. They can see my face there.
Oh, perfect. Okay, I'm going to do that for you. There you go.
There you go. So hi everyone, my name is Cal Huang. I've actually been with Google for about over 7 years now. Time flies. And I'm actually out of the Toronto office, and I work specifically with a bunch of partners like AgentLocator. A lot of them deal with the real estate market. So Sebastian's also on the line here. So Seb, do you want to quickly introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Sebastian. I been with Google for about 4 years soon. Transferred to Toronto a year ago, so quite new in Canada. Yeah, I've been in the marketing technology space before Google as well, and yeah, been working with Addo and AgentLocator for the past year or so.
Cool. So, why are we here? So a lot's changed in the real estate market over the past year as a result of COVID. So we wanted to be able to share with you what we've been seeing from a consumer demand perspective. So one of the things that we're going to do here is we're going to walk you through some of the initial trends that we're seeing within the first couple months of the year. And then we're going to dive into some customer path to purchase research that we conducted in 2020. And then towards the end, Sebastian will close off with some specific search trends that we've been seeing on the real estate category here in Canada. So Addo, do you want to jump to the next slide? Perfect. Okay. So I wanted to start the presentation by referencing this article published in the Wall Street Journal. This article caught my eye as it references multiple points in history where the pandemic actually changed the real estate market and also changed consumer behavior permanently. The gist of the article is that there's generally always a boom in real estate after every global pandemic over the course of history. The other interesting thing that we found out is that, when it comes to the pandemic, the writer mentions that most of these changes were already in motion, but it accelerates a lot of these changes based on government restrictions or personal choice. And a prime example of this, is the new work from home that everyone's kind of experiencing, or the move from the city to the suburbs. But some of the not so obvious changes that we're starting to see as a result of the pandemic is the way that customers are actually shopping for real estate, their dependency on digital channels, and the new changes in customers' expectations. So today, what I'm going to share with you is some research that we did during the heart of the pandemic, as we'll share some early discoveries that we've already seen at the start of the year. And at the end, I'll speak a little bit about how you can take advantage of some of these insights. Next slide.
All right.
So over the past couple of years, we've been polling home buyers on how much of their home buying process was actually assisted through digital channels. Every year, we see this number go up without any exception. And this past year in 2020, we saw that 84% of people utilize a digital channel to actually hire a service provider to either buy, sell, or rent their home. We don't know what it is yet for 2021, but I don't imagine that this number is going to be going down. If you jump to the next slide. So another massive trend that we're actually seeing currently is that we're seeing record highs for search volume for mortgage-related queries online. So in fact, terms like mortgage loans, mortgage calculators, mortgage rates, they're at the highest they've ever been. This insight is really important and applicable to agents because mortgage applications are generally a predictor of home sales. And I guess the big question here is that, agents and brokers, are you visible during critical times like this? Are you getting your brand out there for customers who are starting, their home buying process, making you top of mind when it comes time to actually select an agent? What we're seeing is that many agents actually miss this opportunity, and then they're too focused on looking for buyers explicitly looking for agents. We also wanted to show you what mortgage trends were looking like in early 2020. So the year over year, we saw that there was pretty significant growth. Demand for mortgage searches from 2019 to 2020 grew almost 26% annually. And as you can see, those year over year trends for mortgages continue to grow in early 2021. So we're already seeing a 40% year over year growth. You can see there's a little bit of a dip, but we probably won't see the same effect that we saw last year in 2020, because during March and April, that was essentially the pandemic. Things went into lockdown and everything went online. But we still expect to see strong double-digit growth for the remainder of the year. Next slide. So this kind of brings us to the research. Do we want to jump one more? So at Google, we love to measure everything. So of course, we decided to conduct some research on how home buyers shopped for their next home. So to better understand the consumer changes, we partnered with a company called Qualtrics to run a survey across 1,500 home buyers and renters. We wanted to understand the role that digital played in the home buyer's path to purchase. And this research was done during and prior to COVID. And there's 4 key findings that we got coming out of this research that is definitely applicable to agents. The first is that the customer path to purchase and buyer expectations have drastically changed, and they're actually becoming increasingly long. The second is branding is a really important part of nurturing the casual shopper. And then number 3, customers want options in the way that they're approaching their home shopping. They want a good do-it-yourself experience. And lastly, the emergence of virtual tours and virtual showings, that's growing in popularity. It's becoming a critical part of the home buying experience.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, maybe just me adding on a little bit onto that. I mean, the concept of the search process. So if we go back, I don't know how many agents we have here that have been in the business for the past 20 years or so, but even if you go back, let's say 10 years, the concept of somebody looking for a home, the very beginning stage of somebody looking for a home, they always would actually have to reach out to the real estate agent and say, hey, send me listings in the area where want to buy. Or there used to be, if you remember those, the flyers that we pull out of the home listing flyers, and we're scrolling through those, looking at them. The biggest change and shift, even more so now than even before, is the fact that people are relying on looking on a website. So going to a website that has all the listings and searching through all those listings. So realtor.ca or realtor.com or Zillow in the States is certainly one of those. But every agent kind of having their own website, because if you don't have your own website, they're going somewhere else to look at those listings. So we need to catch those people kind of at the beginning stage of the buying process. And that's what we're doing with making sure that we're providing websites that have all the listings accessible to them. So sorry, just wanted to add that, Kellen, on there. Continue on.
Yeah, very good point.
Yeah.
So as mentioned, one of the major discoveries around consumer behavior coming out of this research was actually the length of the customer journey. It's incredibly long. So what you're seeing here is the survey results for buyers and renters that have already decided on the home that they wanted to purchase or rent. Even after the home buyer had already settled on what their dream home looked like, it still took a really long time for them to pull the trigger. So
Right.
over 51% of home buyers, took over 3 weeks to buy, even when they already knew exactly what they wanted. So it just kind of underscores how long this process is actually taking now.
Yeah, for sure. So I just want to mention one part onto this. So this is a buyer. The study that was conducted here was in a buyer that's already made the decision to actually purchase, meaning that, again, when we think of the concept of internet leads and people that come and start searching on Google at the very beginning, if you think of somebody who's searching for homes for sale in Toronto is one example. Those are typically people at the very beginning stage of the buying process. So we're not saying that those people will, transact in a month. Those people generally take much longer, because if you think of yourself, if you just start thinking about buying a home, you jump online, start searching through homes for sale. You're usually at the very beginning, meaning that could take 8, 9, 10 months or so before you even kind of come to a decision where you're made a decision of the home that you actually want. So just wanted to point that out. And Kellen, should I move on to the next slide?
Yeah, so this slide specifically talks about customers who have already decided. They've already gone through this whole process of researching.
Yeah.
They've already committed to a home. And what this is essentially saying is even when they've committed, they still take a really long time to actually pull the trigger.
Right. Awesome. And we have that for renters here as well, which is great. So perfect.
Yep.
Oh, I do want to, sorry, I want to say actually just one more part. Sorry, Kellen, on the renters. So for any of you out there that have actually been considering doing rental leads or generating rental leads, we honestly, we have clients who are generating over $10,000 a month in revenue just off of rental leads. Rental leads, as we all know, are a dime a dozen. Essentially, not a lot of agents want to work with them. But if you want to create a sustainable, if you want to pay off your buyer campaign through your rental campaign, you can assist some of these renters, because the cost per lead on renters is about $1.50 per lead. So it is really inexpensive to go after renters if that's something that you guys want to try out. So sorry, Kellen, go ahead.
Yeah, all good. So another lens that we actually took with our research was to understand how many homes a buyer was considering when they first started the search. So as you can see during
Is it me or did Kellen disconnect?
No, we can't hear him.
down.
Okay, Kellen, sorry, you disconnected there for a second. Thanks, Crystal.
Yeah, sorry, what part did you miss?
You disconnected. You can start from the beginning of that one. So I think we're back now. We can hear you.
Yeah, so I was essentially just saying we took another lens to the research here just to understand, how many homes a buyer were actually considering when they first started the search. So if you take a look at the first column there, this is essentially the exploration stage. So this is how many homes a buyer looked at. And you can see more than half of the buyers looked at over 6+ homes, and over a third of home seekers here, looked at 11+, right? Even when they finally narrowed down to their top choices, so that's the second column there on the right, when buyers felt fairly certain of the home that they wanted to buy, there were still 20% of buyers that had 6+ homes in their consideration set. So what this slide essentially underpins is that buyers are really indecisive and somewhat overwhelmed by all the choices that are available to them. Not only are they taking longer to pull the trigger on purchases, they're considering more homes than they ever did before. And this is probably likely a result of all the different online tools that are available to buyers during the home searching process. It's really the role of the agent to ensure that their website is surfaced as one of the core tools that customers using when trying to utilize or trying to search for or during this home buying process. So not only does your site need to be found, it has to be useful and assistive during the decision-making process in order for you to win over these new customers.
Okay. And one thing I just want to add on to this stat here was taken from 2020. I'm right. This was the actual survey was done in 2020, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So one of the key things that's changed in the last little while is the scarcity of properties, not really having a lot of properties in the market. And then when we're looking at here viewed homes, this is more properties I've actually looked at, meaning they've physically gone and looked at those properties. Is that correct? Just want to make sure that. Kel?
Can you guys hear me?
Nope, you're okay. You're back.
Okay, I missed a bunch of what you said as well. Sorry for the connectivity issues.
Oh, no worries, no worries. Yeah, I was just
yeah,
saying that from a concept of scarcity in terms of right now, the market is such that there's really not a lot of properties in the market. And what we're looking at here is also they've actually looked at these homes physically, right? So they've looked at 16 plus homes physically where they've gone to them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, okay. we're hoping to update this research. So this was again done in 2020. This is something that we're looking to do annually. So we'll have a different cut to see what 2021 looks like, hopefully in the summertime.
Okay, great, awesome.
Okay, so let's jump to the next slide.
Perfect. Yeah.
All right. So diving deeper into the research, we wanted to look at how many people are actually consider buying a home right now. And then what we uncovered is that 46% of the market is actually either casually looking or seriously looking. So there's these two different categories. They represent two different opportunities for marketers. Most agents are generally looking to go after like the serious shoppers, so the people that are in market, but very little attention is generally given to the casual shoppers. So I wanted to start by quickly diving in.
Oh, Kel, you cut off again for us. I don't know if you can hear me. Kel. Sorry, guys. I think we're having a little bit of difficulty with Kel's connection here. He's going to be back with us first in a second. Michael, just to answer your question, I think you're back with us, Kel. No worries. I think it's great. We had a question here while you're off. I'm just going to answer that question. So the data is physically seen homes. So for the previous slide, the data is based on seen homes. Now we're going to dive into a little bit of kind of a little bit more data here. Sorry, Kel, go ahead.
Yeah, so we want to dive into the casual shopper. So if we want to jump into the next slide here.
Absolutely.
So looking at all of the home buyers, we saw that 20% of customers are casually looking for a home. And of those home shoppers, more than half of them are trying to understand what they can afford. And 43% of them believe that they might need to make a move in the near future. So all of these reasons listed here are actually directions for marketers. Using these insights, you can actually tailor your messaging, your creative, and you can bring these customers into your pipeline. So these casual home shoppers represent potentially your future customers, and smart marketers are taking these casual shoppers and putting them into a systematic lead nurturing process so that when these customers are ready to buy, their brand is the first thing that they think of. And I guess another interesting thing to note that came out of this research is that casual home shoppers, the research is that less than a third of them, so about 28% of shoppers, aren't looking because of COVID. This presents a really interesting opportunity, specifically for digital channels, which remarketing is really great at solving that problem. So if remarketing isn't a part of your current strategy, especially during COVID times, you should really start and consider to leverage remarketing as a tactic as a tactic that you should be utilizing.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to kind of add on to that a little bit here. So our strategy with regards to how do we acquire these, how do we go after these is internet lead generation is all about going right now. Let's say there's two ponds really when we're looking at internet lead generation. There's one pond called the search pond and another pond called the social pond. Search pond is we've got Google, Bing, Yahoo, and all the search engines. And obviously we know the biggest search engine there And social pond, we have Facebook, Instagram, so on and so forth. So one key thing to remember when it comes to catching these individuals who are at the very beginning stages of the buying process, when it comes to social and search, we have to look at intent, meaning that on search, people have an intent. They're actually looking for a home. They're actually searching for homes for sale in the area where you want to sell. And on social, we're casting a wide net to a lot of people who live in a city. And now with all the new rules, we can't even target by, specific things. We have to cast that wide net and then catch people that are potentially interested in seeing the ad and responding to that ad. Now, we don't know whether it's from curiosity or whatever the concept is. So, when it comes to Google and search engine, it's much better to actually start with search engines first. And I'm not saying this here because Google is here in any way, shape, or form. It truly is. Our data shows that when we do lead generation, when we have both, I'm not saying the other one is not an option, but it is much better to start with Google first. And then secondly, what we do with our platform right now is that all of those people that get onto your website and actually start browsing through properties, they are going to get retargeted there, because automatically we have a campaign set up called tag marketing that starts remarketing to these people. So imagine if they go to your website, when they leave your website, they start seeing your ads everywhere they go. So that's the concept of remarketing there. So I'll continue this on the next slide, Kellen.
Yep. I would actually add, there's probably a third one that you didn't bring up. So I would say contextually relevant as well, right? So, display as well as video, those you can surface up ads and you can surface up a message that would be potentially contextually relevant to what the customer is already looking for.
Yeah, that's an interesting one to do some testing where, your video. So before the YouTube ad plays or before the video plays, you can actually play a message to that individual on YouTube as well. So essentially any of those that have gone to your website, have registered to become a lead, they start seeing your ads everywhere. And that's where we really expose your brand as much as possible. And for those clients that are comfortable with having a video and doing a video for them, I think it's a great a way to pop that in there. So awesome. Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah, so this kind of brings us to our first recommendation. So the recommendation is don't neglect casual shoppers. They're essentially going to be your customer of tomorrow. So make sure that you engage them with all of the reasons mentioned in the previous slide, and make sure that you get them into your prospecting pipeline. So, make sure that you're using language in your creative that calls out to, when you're ready, you'll be there. And lastly, make sure that you're leveraging remarketing to its fullest potential, right? These casual shoppers might not be ready to buy right now, but they'll be there soon, right? And as long as you stay in front of them with your message, they'll eventually become customers of yours.
Absolutely.
Jump to the next slide. So this is just some creative examples here. So it's a couple of examples that can speak.
Kellen, you disconnected again. So while Cal gets his connection back up, I want to pop on and answer some of the questions. So Nancy posted a question. There's a ton of junk listings still on the web. Is anyone
Financial readiness of the shop?
Oh, Kellen, you're back with us now, but you cut off actually.
Sorry.
Sorry. No worries. Yeah, you're back now. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just talking about some of the examples of scenarios that you could potentially speak to within your ad creative. Those could be things such as like financial readiness of the shopper, or even speak to the current environment of shopping through COVID, right? People might not want to necessarily go and visit a home as frequently, but if you offer some of these virtual tours and virtual showings, these are things that could potentially spark the interest of a potential buyer.
Awesome.
So if we go to the next slide. So during COVID, we actually found that buyers and renters felt they actually had an increased sense of power, and they felt that they had more negotiating power than usual. And the more time that these customers were spending researching online, the more empowered they became. So because customers did so much due diligence on their own, they felt very educated once it came down to closing the deal. So the knowledge that they actually acquired through the research phase caused these buyers to show up more confident during their negotiation phase. And an interesting thing to note here is that, there's a pretty meaningful discrepancy between buyers and renters when it comes to feeling more empowered. Generally speaking, the bigger the purchase decision is, the more time people spend on researching, and the more people spend on researching, they show up more confident and more educated about their choices. So what you ultimately get is you get a buyer that knows exactly what they want and how much they should be paying for it. So that's the reason for their empowerment.
Yeah, awesome.
So drilling further into self-research, we see that home seekers find that they are more likely to use features that allow them to do things themselves. So rather than chat or connect with an agent, they're looking at a bunch of these other features so that they can leverage the do-it-yourself option. So if you dig deeper into this kind of do-it-yourself attitude the customers are experiencing, you can see that shoppers are much more empowered to leverage digital channels to sort through things such as listings, looking at properties that they desire in their desired area, and property features. They like to do those things on their own. The biggest addition to this list is the emergence of viewing properties virtually, so the virtual tours. This wasn't something that was previously possible before or even expected a couple of years back. So I guess the real takeaway here is that if your website doesn't allow for these features and capabilities, you aren't really addressing the needs of your customer.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. So I appreciate that. We did have one question. I just want to validate this. So the data that's mentioned here is Canadian. So I know a lot of it is, but I just want to double check and maybe answer that question for everybody.
Yep.
Sorry, Sebastian, or Kellen, you cut off a little bit there. Yep.
Sorry, what was the question in?
The question was whether the data here is from Canadian consumers.
Sorry, so some of this is Canadian, some of it is US.
Okay, so not everything is 100% Canadian, but a lot of it is. Okay.
Correct.
Awesome.
Okay, so this kind of brings us to our second recommendation. So when building your brand online, it's more important than ever to communicate that you and your website will be helpful in the home buyer journey. So remember that today's customer is very open to this DIY or do-it-yourself experience. Make sure that you're able to position the buyer or seller with the tools that they need to be able to make an informed decision. This could include educational content on things like YouTube or providing renters the ability to look across platforms to find their next home.
Okay. Oh, did we lose Kellen again? I think we lost Kellen again.
Advanced features.
Sebastian, sorry, Kellen, we lost you again. You just came back.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
So I don't know whether the slide that we're on is that good. I switched while you stood quiet for a second. Okay.
Yeah, no. I was just talking about how these are examples of ads that can message utility and creative. So letting customers know that you offer strong DIY within your website. So examples of this, allowing for advanced search functionalities on your websites, which allows customers to filter for homes that meet their exact criteria, could be a really valuable tool for customers that are spending more and more time looking for their next home. So also calling out things like virtual, we talked about virtual a bunch already. Those are things that actually will make ads stand out in a crowd.
Okay.
So we talked a lot about virtual. So speaking about virtual showings, 2020 really has been the emergence of virtual tours in the real estate industry. This has primarily been fueled by the desire to view homes without physically being present. And more agents are actually leveraging virtual tours as a tool to engage customers who not normally have been shopping during the pandemic. So when we asked home buyers in the survey about the next time that they were looking to purchase a home, those that sign or bought during COVID, so that's the green bar that you're looking at there, they saw less utility in working with an agent or physically going to an open house than they did than those that actually bought before COVID. So that's the blue bar that you're looking at there. So those are the pre-COVID signers. Virtual tours, which were already a really useful part of the home buying experience before COVID, only increased in usefulness after as a result.
Right.
So this brings us to our third and final recommendation. So virtual tours are likely here to stay, right? This feature is becoming very, very important for home shoppers.
Kellen disconnected again. So we are going to answer a question that Brad posted up is the new rule going to end retargeting as Google announced recently? So Rad,
Virtually, but you
so Kellen, you actually disconnected again. So you can start from the beginning on this slide.
sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah, you disconnected, and if you can start beginning of the slide, that's where we ended.
Yeah. I was just talking about, how virtual is pretty much here to stay.
Right.
Like this feature is becoming more and more important for the average home shopper, and
Right.
that, in a world where people aren't necessarily looking to go to as many physical viewings as possible, the option of actually having a virtual one becomes very appealing to people. So as an agent, you want to make sure that you actually have this ability, not only to be able to list a house virtually, but also potentially to show the house through this manner as well. So make sure that your website actually highlights some of these capabilities, and your marketing also highlights the fact that you offer virtual features.
Yeah.
So this essentially concludes like most of the research findings and our recos coming out of the research. And outside of the survey data that we actually have, we at Google are really.
We're gonna have to get Google to get Kellen a better connection. His connection is cut off again. So Rad, your question on
Happening in the
Kellen. Yeah,
yeah.
you cut off you cut off again for us. And you were just kind of explaining that the last part of it, but yeah.
Which part about our internal data?
The last, I would say 20 seconds of yeah, you cut off.
Yeah, so I think what we're getting into is like outside of the survey data that we were able to get, all this research from, we also have a lot of internal data. So Google's very fortunate to have a ton of like consumer demand data. And one of the things that we generally like to say is that search is the database of intentions. So, of all the searches that happen within Google search, this is a good indicator of what consumers are actually thinking and likely the way that they're going to behave. So, we're able to draw some pretty strong conclusion on what's going to likely be happening in the real estate market as a result. So I'm going to pass it now over to Sebastian. Hopefully he doesn't have as many connectivity issues that I had. And he's going to actually walk through a lot of these insights with you guys.
Awesome. That's great. Sebastian, once you pop on, I just want to actually quickly answer a question that Rad posted here, because I mentioned it while Kellen was kind of cutting off. So, and Sebastian, it's actually great that you're on, because I know this is a question that I posed to you a little while back.
Yep.
when Google announced this. So is retargeting going to get diminished because of the new rules that are happening? Is retargeting going away?
Yeah, it's a very good question and very timely. So it depends who you're retargeting. So what's happening is that third-party cookies are going to be phased out over the coming years, since many players in the industry on the browser side and tech side in general are phasing out the third-party cookies, but first-party cookies are not going anywhere yet. So this means that if it's your own data that you captured yourself on your website that you're remarketing to, that's still going to be okay. So your own data, you can still remarket to.
Yeah. So to kind of translate that onto what does that mean for us as I'm an agent? What does that mean? Third party, fourth party, first party. So essentially, if people are coming to your website and you're tagging them, that's first party, meaning that your own traffic is going to be retargeted and you're able to retarget. Where what's being disabled is you being able to target based on what somebody else has acquired. So let's say on Google, we could go to these affinity groups and say, I want to target people that have gone to realtor.ca as an example. That you won't be able to target because that's what's really being disabled. But your own targeting traffic is not going to have any issues with that. So Sebastian, thanks so much for answering the question, and we'll kind of get into this, and I will go through the next slides, and you let me know when you want to move on.
I would actually just quickly comment there. The biggest impact that third-party cookies being disabled is really going to only affect display advertising. It's not necessarily really going to affect search in any big way. So what you'll likely see is, the majority of advertisers, it will be status quo if you aren't big display advertisers.
Yeah. So our ability to generate leads is not going to change whatsoever. The concept of generating leads is really here to stay from a perspective of search. So, Sebastian, you want me to move to the next one? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, what we're gonna go over in this section, as Cal said already, is looking at our internal data when it comes to real estate in Canada specifically. So this is only Canadian data that we're looking at from here on, and it's looking at trends that we're seeing in different areas in Canada, geographically, as well as types of properties, as well as overall demand in the market. So starting off, this is probably not surprising to anyone, but looking at 2020 compared to 2019, and what we're looking at here is, as I said, Canadian real estate searches. So these are all searches that we're seeing that are related to real estate in Canada. So what I want you to focus on here is like the difference in 2019 compared to 2020 across the whole year. So it starts on about a 5% uplift in the beginning of the year, and then, as you all know, we had a big dip when COVID hit, and the recovery has been extremely strong. But not only was it strong, it stayed like that throughout the year. So if you look at the difference between 2019 and 2020, it's about 25% higher consistently. And although you can't see the beginning of 2021 here, we're seeing that this is staying. So it's not a temporary increase so far from what we can see, but it's still an increase that has stayed. And this obviously is a big opportunity that you can capture since there's a lot more traffic in the market.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to pop on a couple of additions onto my part. So when we look at, many times we get agents asking us, hey, December is coming up, should I pause my ads? Is anybody even looking for a home? And so a lot of agents actually choose to stop their ad spend also in December, primarily because we want to have some time off. But for those of you that are really not too busy and want to try to get busy, there's still a lot of people to actually go after in December. So if you look at the actual search, obviously, yes, it does go down, but there's still a lot of people. And what's nicer in December is that the cost per lead actually goes down because there's less advertisers to be bidding on clicks. The cost per lead drives down a little bit. So I just wanted to pass that on. Now, these search trends specifically are for all search related keywords. So it's kind of nice to combine all the search related keywords together. And then Sebastian is going to dive a little bit deeper into some more specifics for us. Should I move on to the next slide?
Yes, please.
Actually, one thing to actually call out around this concept of evergreen. So agents generally have a hard time.
Kel, Sebastian, can you hear Kel at all? Or yeah, you don't hear.
No,
right?
I can't. Let's go to the next slide, and Kel can add that comment later on.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
So this is looking at same graph, 2019 versus 2020, but looking at the cost per click. So if you pay attention here, you see that it's the opposite. So the cost per click across 2020 has actually been lower than it was in 2019, and it's kind of catching up a bit there to get to the same levels, but it's still under where it was last year. And why is this? This is because we're seeing an increase in demand. As you can see from the last slide, we have 25% more searches, but we don't have 25% more advertisers, which means that there's a discrepancy in the supply versus demand compared to last year, which is giving us a cheaper cost per click. So as an advertiser, you will be able to get the 10% cheaper click compared to last year. Now again, it's closing the gap a bit there, but it's still under where it was last year, which again, just emphasizing that there's more volume to capture on the market, but the price is not higher than it was before.
Yeah, so the lower cost per click, the lower cost per lead. So essentially, the less we pay per click, the less it's going to cost you to generate a lead. So that move on to the next one.
Yeah, this is just illustrating the same concept again by looking at something we call coverage. Coverage means what percentage of search queries have an ad showing on them. So a low coverage means that less searches have ads on them. A high coverage means that more search queries are showing an ad. So what I want you to focus on is again the gap between the searches and the coverage. So the coverage have gone down over the year as the searches have gone up. So essentially, same amount of advertisers, but more search queries. So coverage is down. So for you, it means that there's more searches that are not showing an ad, which theoretically means an opportunity that there's a demand there that you can capture with the Google search ad.
Yeah. So I know it's hard to manage it for a lot of those that are out there searching for the regular keyword homes for sale in whatever area. We always see ads there, but there are times where it shows that there's actually not an ad being served because there's not an advertiser to serve that ad. So that's the demand where we have the ability to, once you get your ads on there, to get them to show. So move on to the next slide for him.
Thank you.
Well,
this is, as you can see, the year-over-year increase in search volume per province. No big outliers here, which is, the point is that it's a nationwide increase. So we're seeing the same increase, almost in any province. And the changes that we're seeing are not between provinces, but they're in the dynamics of the search within the province, which you will see on the next slide if we go on to look at. Sorry.
So I'm going to actually just answer one comment here that was made. So let's see the data for 2021. I know that this data may be a little bit delayed in terms of 2020. Can you elaborate a little bit? Tell us a little bit about Sebastian. Like, what does the data look like, and how big is the spread here for 2021? I know we mentioned the searches in 2021 a little bit. Is the spread joined back in?
It hasn't joined back in, so we're still seeing that coverage is significantly, lower than it was on the early 2021 data. The reason we can't share it is that it's not the closed quarter yet, but
when we close the quarter of 2021, we'll maybe we can redo this webinar and maybe get Sebastian on here to do a quick coverage of that data as well. But move on to these for him.
Yeah. So as I said, like we're seeing, like between provinces, there's no major differences. Where there's big differences year on year is when we look at searches within provinces. So where is the demand going? How is it shifting? So here you have the top cities as a year-over-year change in search volume, and the common denominator here is really that these are either towns or suburbs further out in metropolitan areas, or they are I guess we can call commuter towns or work from home towns that are like 1 to 2 hours outside of a big city, which is something that's really picked up in the last year for obvious reasons, right? People are looking for more space, etc. And this is obviously something I'm sure all of you have seen as well, but it's also something that we've seen that is staying so far in 2021, and we have increases in inner cities as well, but those increases are not as large as they are in suburbs and in commuter towns, where we've seen a really huge shift in
so these are the stats are basically showing year-over-year change. These places have a much higher year-over-year change in terms of searches in the area. So that's
so these are percentage wise, so not absolute volume, but percentage change. Yeah,
higher percentage change. Perfect. Awesome. All right.
And taking into account like where those places are, where we've seen the highest growth numbers, it only makes sense that we're seeing that the demand for houses is outpacing the demand for condos as well, since people are moving to places where there's more room, more houses, and less condos, essentially. And this is not a surprise to anyone either, I think. But if you look at the year-over-year change still on condos, there's still a significant positive change on condos as well. So I would just emphasize that, the demand for condos hasn't gone down. We still have about a, 25-30% increase year on year since the recovery in May. So the whole market is up in terms of search demand, but houses is still ahead of condos.
Awesome.
And with that, Cal, over to you again to wrap it up.
Yeah, thanks. Can everyone hear me? Okay,
Yep.
I'm concerned now. Every time I talk, I'm like, hey, can people hear me? So we went through a lot of research and data. So I guess the question is like, now, so what? What do I do with all of this, right? So we wanted to put together some concise recommendations on how you can potentially proceed. So the first recommendation really is around, make digital a primary marketing channel for you guys. So with the increases in search volume and with more of the buyer's path to purchase taking place online, it really makes sense that all realtors should really have a strong online presence. If you aren't investing in digital channels as one of your core marketing tools, then you're probably not meeting, the customers where customers are actually spending the majority of their time these days looking for their next home. The second recommendation really is around expanding your idea of what lead generation is. So for those that are already taking advantage of the digital economy, I want to challenge you to expand your thinking of what lead generation can look like. So every agent is trying to tap into the in-market customers. So those are the customers that are explicitly looking to buy a home right now. But very few agents are actually tapping into the upper funnel marketing activities. So here's actually where we think that you can win. So leveraging creative to speak to like these casual shoppers, getting them into your marketing pipeline, remarketing them until they're ready to buy. Also think of the other types of leads that you aren't currently generating.
And Kelvin has cut off again. So the concept of, and who wouldn't want a lead or a person that's ready to buy right away? I mean, we all want the person who is ready to immediately go out and make a purchase, obviously. And
come back to the market.
Kellen, you just came back. You were lost for about 15 seconds.
Okay. Do you guys get the second point? So expand the idea of lead generation?
No.
Okay.
That part repeat, yeah.
Yeah. So I was essentially talking about, I challenge people to expand their thinking around what lead generation actually looks like. So every agent right now is trying to tap into like in-market customers. So those are customers that are explicitly looking to buy a home right now. And then very few agents are probably tapping into these upper funnel marketing activities. Right. So, these upper funnel marketing activities, like this is where I believe that realtors can really win. Leveraging creative to speak to casual shoppers, getting them into their marketing pipeline to be able to remarket to them until they're actually ready to buy. Right. Also thinking about, the different types of leads that most people are just looking for. Home buyers, thinking about rental leads, home sellers, property comparison, appraisals. These are all triggers that we can essentially, try to obtain leads from. And then lastly, be visible, helpful, and assistive. So, it's become really clear that buyers and sellers have come back into the marketplace with changed expectations. They're researching more than they ever did before, and they've come back into the marketplace with a sense of empowerment. So with so much information that's available at their fingertips, home shoppers are looking for agents that have websites that could actually be assistive through this whole process. The ability to bring in all of the available information out there and centralize and consolidate it in one specific place. So, they also want to have options to view homes without physically going to see the houses. So, they want to connect with their agents potentially in multiple ways.
So Kellen has cut off again. I want to mention one part here and correct Kellen a little bit here in the sense that, he mentioned that buyers are looking for agents that have websites where they can search for homes. Online so Kellen, you disconnected there for a second. Well, for the last 15 seconds or so again. I was actually just making a statement on one of the comments or one of the things you said where he said that buyers are looking for agents that have websites that are capable of, providing properties. The one thing that I just want to say there is buyers are actually not looking for agents online for the most part. Buyers are looking for homes for sale online. And what they're doing is they're naturally finding, when they're Googling homes for sale, whatever area, they're seeing the ads, and that's where they're beginning their search. So they're really truly not, if they're searching for homes for sale in Toronto, they're not looking for an agent. They really are not looking for an agent. They're looking for all the homes that are currently available in the area. And by having that website that actually gives them the functionality they need in order to make that fulfillment, that's how we're capturing these leads. And that's how then you're nurturing them afterwards, because we're capturing them at that very beginning stage. And then we're feeding you, the agent, all the information about what they're looking at, their first and last name, phone number, email address. And then will some of them enter fake info? Absolutely. It's going to happen. It's part of the concept of some people just giving fake info. But I wanted to just mention that, Kelvin, and correct you on that part. Are you back with us? You can hear us? Right?
Can you
Okay,
hear me?
great. Yeah, we can hear you
Yeah,
now.
no, it's a really valid point. Like I think when we looked at some of the research earlier on, when they talk about utility, you know, for people signing before and post COVID, you know, we talked about how people found less utility specifically around the agents, but more utility around the online searching. So I think it's a very valid point that you're saying online people aren't necessarily searching for agents. They're looking for properties. They're looking for the ability to compare. They're looking at the ability to view, like, you know, some of these properties virtually, right? So it's a very that kind of speaks to the point of being helpful and being assistive. Like that is what your website really needs to be if you want to win in the digital space.
Awesome. Awesome.
So, you know, we've dropped a ton of information on everyone, and I can imagine it's probably really overwhelming. You know, and at Google, we don't necessarily have the capacity to help each and every single agent out there directly, which is why we actually have the Google Partner Program, right? So we work with partners such as AgentLocator. We share a lot of these insights and best practices with them on a really regular basis. And then, you know, there's a lot of criteria that are also involved with being a premier partner. So for AgentLocator to be a part of the program, you know, they're held in a higher standard as it pertains to account performance, you know, account hygiene, than those that aren't. You know, they also have access to the latest tools, betas. You know, they have a dedicated support team with me, myself, and Seb. And we also provide them with a bunch of offers that we launch with them on a regular basis. So if you guys are actually looking to get started on digital, I would recommend reaching out to Addo and the AgentLocator team. If you're a first-time advertiser of Google, we've also provided AgentLocator with a special offer, which is essentially a $150 spend match. So if you guys are looking to get started, I would recommend, you know, reaching out to Addo, and they can set you up if you're a first-time customer with that $150 credit.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Kel. Thanks so much on mentioning that. So anybody who actually hasn't started a lead generation program, what Google is saying here is they're going to match $150 ad spend. So if you spend 150, they're going to give you 150 into your account, and that's handled directly through us. So our team actually helps you set all that up when you get started with the campaign, and they take care of the whole thing for you. One of the things that Kel mentioned was that, you know, us having access to Sebastian and Kel and the rest of the Google team, and us seeing the data that we do see. Many times we're also under NDAs where we can't provide that information. We can use it towards helping you guys, you know, do everything we do, but we're not, you know, we can't really provide that information unless we have the right to do so. So that's, just want to mention that part of it, because then, you know, we get requests from agents, hey, can you send me some of that information? And unfortunately, we don't have the ability to do that a lot of times. So, Kellen, I really appreciate you guys being here. We had a few questions. Some are related, some are not related to Google, but I'm going to ask the question anyway, hoping that Sebastian might have an answer for us, because he might, you know, a lot of times I've asked him some of these questions and he said answers for us. So Bobby asked the question, can you delete a business page and create a new one? So this is on the local services, and Sebastian, I don't know if you know the answer to that one.
I actually don't. Yeah, like we can follow up with you on that one.
No worries.
Yeah,
There's not the ability to delete per se, but you can claim. So you can claim it and then adjust it. But if the business doesn't actually exist and for some reason it popped up, then we can essentially file a ticket to have something.
I think Kellen was trying to say that there is, if you if you wish to delete your business page, there might be some support articles online. We'll try to find some information to pass over to you, Bobby. Anita asked, how does one target a casual buyer? So, who are casual buyers? Casual buyers are these people that are online searching for homes for sale in whatever area they're looking. That's really a casual buyer, and casual buyer is an internet lead. And that's where we come into the picture and help agents generate these leads. So we've been doing it now for the past 12 years, really. I mean, specifically in real estate. Prior to real estate, we've had a ton of exposure and understanding with online marketing, but we've been concentrating specifically in real estate and real estate agents in the last 12 years. And we generate, I don't know the exact number here, but over a few million leads every few months. So we see a lot of things go through, and I got to say a few things about internet leads and about internet lead generation in general. For those of you that have never tried internet leads before, internet leads, the best way that I can describe internet leads to you is to say this. And Kellen and Sebastian, I know you guys may not know the terms and all that stuff, but I'm going to use some real estate terms here specifically. So cold calling and doing, let's say, I forgot the name of it, but the sphere of influence dialing, not sphere of influence, but dialing around a property that's been listed, where it's really essentially cold calling. So the best way that I can actually describe internet leads is to say to you, imagine if I gave you a list of people. So not out of the phone book, you're not dialing people out of the phone, but imagine if I gave you a list of people and says, I know that these people have recently searched for homes for sale in an area, but they don't know necessarily going to be calling them. How successful would you be with that list? Those are really internet leads, and that's kind of the best way for you to give it a thought if you've never got into internet lead generation before. So many fake leads, many people telling you that they have no interest, but it's the approach that you take with them that really makes a huge difference. So I hope that kind of explains a little bit of internet lead generation perspective for those of you that haven't tried it before. We have a question for Sherry. How many rental lease per month based on $150 budget for Scarborough area? So Sunny, I know you're here with us. I believe a cost per lead for Scarborough leads is around $1.50 a lead. I don't think it's going to be more than that. So if you take the 150 divided by the $1.50, it'll tell you the exact number, and that is. So Jacqueline Watson posted $7. Okay, so it's about 100 leads if it's $1.50 per lead, but I don't know the exact cost per lead of what the cost per lead is. And Sherry, to get the best answer to that question, you could, if you're an existing client, you can email support@agentlocator.ca, or if you are not an existing client, then you can go to agentlocator.ca and then book a demo. Our sales staff has access to the cost per lead on rental leads. So Jacqueline, these are rental leads. I believe Jacqueline is talking about buyer leads in that perspective. So I hope that answers your question. And I really appreciate you guys being here again. Kellen, Sebastian, I think, we can definitely end there. If we have more questions that are coming from others, is there a way to learn more involved with lead gen program other than just providing a budget? Is there a way to be more involved? I don't fully understand that question, Mike. You mean if you provide an area where you want to target? I don't 100% know the yeah, perfect. Reach out offline. I can maybe help answer that question, or we can go from there. So that's about it. Kellen, Sebastian, I truly appreciate your time. Again, thanks so much. And everyone, have yourselves an amazing day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
All right. Bye.